We are open for public comment. Always appreciate the public in joining us. Let me just read our standard introduction. Public comments are limited to 2 minutes per person. Comment can express support or dissent for regulatory action. Individuals should not use public comment to complain about personnel or attack or defame an individual. Speakers making a highly detailed or complex comment should also consider providing a written outline of their words to the board. Please remember that children may hear your comments. Be thoughtful and professional, and keep your comments appropriate for a general audience. If you have material with explicit language or content, submit such material in writing to the board at publiccomments@schools.utah.gov. And if you need that email address, feel free to grab anybody in staff or Kelsey James or Sybil up here, and they'll help you to make sure your comments are directed to everybody in the board. Okay, so we've got a list of those who've signed up for public comments. We start with Sarah Jones. And I'll just say while she's coming up, if some of us are on our computers, we're taking notes, not ignoring you. So please know we appreciate every member that joins us and gives their comments. Sarah.
And then if you'll just hit the person with the, on the bottom of the. Why is.
Okay. Good morning, board members. I'm Dr. Sarah Jones with the Utah Education Association. I'm here to speak with you today about a rule that you will be considering later this morning, R277323, which is about educator evaluation. And first, I want to thank Dr. Jennifer Thronson and all of the staff that have worked so hard on putting together this rule. It's been a very collaborative process. I just want to highlight one issue that I think could be clarified, and that is the definition of the educator ratings. And specifically, I'm thinking about draft 3. That's the most recent draft in your board documents, lines 62 to 67. So it's a move to a continuous growth model for educators, which we think is a great move towards thinking about continuous professional growth for educators. And the 4 evaluation ratings, there's a 0, which is unsatisfactory performance. That seems very clear. There's a 3, which is you have met expectations, and that's very clear. But ratings 1 and 2 are both defined as having a deficiency in the way the language is written. And so it may be interpreted by educators that only the highest rating is considered effective for them. And this would be discouraging to educators. So really what it's intended to be is that levels 1, 2, and 3 represent varying levels of effectiveness, not kind of a binary effective, ineffective. And we think that this could be clarified in one of 2 ways. One, it's adding some language to the rule on line 70. And again, I'm going off draft 3, making it clear about varying levels of effectiveness for educators, or through the targeted communication efforts to educators on the rollout. But what's important is that every administrator and every educator understands the rating system in the exact same way, and there's no misinterpretation about what is considered effective or ineffective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
Is the mic on?
I can turn it back on.
Okay, 2 minutes. Rio Polidoro up next.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Rio Polidori, and I'm currently a career technical education educator at a high school, or a CTE business high school. Recently on July 8th, a Utah State Board member appeared as a guest speaker on the podcast, Be Not Afraid with Kara Marcel. During this podcast, the board member made statements that diminish the qualifications of CTE educators across the state. And I quote, "The CTE program is part of this growing your own teacher program, meaning they are training students in high school to become teachers as soon as they graduate. High school students become teachers without even going to college, meaning that it does not require much to become a teacher these days. I would like to counter this board's members' personal view with my own professional experience as a CTE educator. I hold a teaching license set by the USB standards, which demands proof of my college degrees, other qualifications. Beyond that, I have a professional background as a senior financial analyst, a bachelor's degree in accounting, a master's in information systems, and I'm pursuing a second master's in curriculum and design to better serve my students. Moreover, I also have served 6 years in the military and training personnel. Obtaining my teacher license was a 2-year rigorous process, surpassing the challenges of academic disciplines listed on my resume. These types of comments are detrimental to our teachers. I question the qualifications of any member of the Utah State Board of Education that belittles our education. Above else, what we need is genuine support from the Utah State Board of Education, not a biased criticism, nor the persistent harassment stemming from inaccurate statements that have been made by Natalie Klein. Thank you.
There we go. Kelly Jones.
Hello, my name is Kelly Jones. I'm with GLSEN of Northern Utah, and we advocate for our LGBTQ+ students at school. I want to highlight the importance of safe schools with the research of Dr. Lisa Diamond at the University of Utah. She looks at the impact of stigma, uncertainty, and disconnection, and finds that the baseline for our minority students is vigilance and wariness. When safety is in doubt, bodies react with stress. Stress reactivity means that the safety is the first thing that we have to solve. You can think of it like putting out a fire. How can we increase the social safety experience of all youth? A commitment from those who have the power to determine the environment, like you, is vital. For example, pledging that I am going to be an unconditional connection and protection to those I serve. Committing to a standard that no board member, administrator, or educator will be allowed to make our minority students feel unsafe. When students are working to limit the threats in their environment, they struggle to test, explore, and grow. In early human life, social abandonment, rejection, and isolation were life-threatening emergencies, survival threats. When they enter our schools, students are determining, is there danger here? Is rejection likely? They're navigating a heightened awareness of being considered the other. If we don't know that we are safe, our primal instincts kick in and we anticipate safety or we anticipate danger. In immature brains, safety has to be made extra clear. It can never be considered a privilege. What is safety? It's invisible, according to Dr. Diamond. It feels like nothing, standing in line at lunch and not even having a thought, walking past people in the halls and literally thinking nothing. Safety allows for full engagement in the present moment with no self-monitoring or self-consciousness. It cannot be just considered in pockets, one class, one district. It's not enough. It has to become the fabric of connection and protection all around our students. It must be a statewide commitment to providing safety at school, and it starts with you. If I can just finish quickly, students feel safe when those who threaten them have consequences.
Time's up.
Sorry, please set
Sorry.
that standard at the top. Let's
Time's up.
commit to safety
Thank you.
so
Ms.
that our
Jones.
students don't have to be
Thank you.
hyper-vigilant and can
Sorry,
focus on
folks.
learning.
We gotta
Thank you.
we gotta apply the rules equally. I'm sorry I missed the cutoff there, but thank you. So next up, let's see. Let me say who's on deck too. We've got Nicholas Willis, followed by Lexi Cunningham. I think Nicholas is on Zoom remotely. You with us, Nicholas? Nicholas, going once. We'll come back to you if you're not with us. Okay, let's go to Lexi Cunningham, and we'll come back to Nicholas. After Lexi will be Brianna Hugh, who I believe is also on Zoom.
Good morning, Chair Moss, Vice Chair Hart, Vice Chair Earl, members of the board, Superintendent Dixon, and staff. Thank you for allowing me to be here this morning. I'm Lexi Cunningham, and I represent the Utah School Superintendents Association and the Utah School Board Association. And I am just here to say we are excited that we are starting a new school year. Teachers and staff are back this year, and we are looking forward to a great year. Superintendents and school board members have been busy all summer, attending professional developments, going to different trainings. We lost some superintendents to retirement this year, but we are really excited to welcome 8 new superintendents into our organization this year, and I look forward to you getting the opportunity to get to know them and work with them. We have new leadership in our USSA. Kate Douglas, the superintendent of Sevier, is our new USSA president, and I'm sure he'll try to get to a meeting this year. Throughout the summer, as I've said, we've had different trainings. We've learned from Stephen Covey. We've learned from Tammy Piper. We appreciate that Vice Chair Hart was at our recent meeting in Logan. And we are just really looking forward to working with you again this year, seeing what we can do to support students, to support teachers, to support our schools and our communities across the state. A strong partnership with the board and all of the educational organizations is so important to the work that we do. I just encourage you today as you deliberate throughout the day, and I know you have a lot of things that you have to consider, and we appreciate that you are here doing that, but I just would encourage you just to be this day. Be kind, be productive, be student focused, and be willing to inspire greatness in your discussions and in your decisions. Again, thank you for all that you do. You don't get enough thanks. You spend a lot of time here and a lot of time in meetings. So we are just here to say thank you, and hopefully we'll see you throughout the year. Thank you, Chair Moss.
Thank you, Lexi. Brianna Hugh,
Hi, can you hear me?
we got you.
Awesome.
Floor is yours.
Awesome. Okay, my name's Brianna Hugh. I'm a middle school ELA teacher and a parent of 3 current students in Utah public schools. I'm involved in PTA, SCC, and spend most of my day in our amazing schools. I just want to talk about 2 specific things. First of all, I'm very concerned about some of the comments made by members of your board. Branding teachers as groomers and complicit with trafficking is a criminal accusation. It demonstrates not only a mistrust of our profession, but it's a failure to advocate for the very purpose for which you were elected. More importantly, when the board fails to take a stand and speak out against these allegations, your silence is implies complicit. And I don't believe that most board members or parents believe these accusations. We are already drowning as teachers under increased pressure to pander to partisan politics. Partisan rhetoric dominating USBE conversations, amendments, and standards has created an incredibly toxic environment. Failure to take actions shows teachers and constituents that you agree with these offensive and criminal allegations. My second concern is actually related to the vision and mission, as discussed on Monday and in other previous study sessions. I'm increasingly concerned with the tone of these discussions. As someone who puts my faith in the work of this board, I know you work so hard, and I appreciate all that you do. But it's incredibly disheartening to see that so much of the conversation on Monday centered around incredibly partisan perspectives regarding the purpose and goals of education. Instead of focusing on what is best for students and how we collaborate as parents, teachers, and community members to provide excellence for our students, it feels like we've lost our focus on the portrait of a graduate competencies. As a teacher, if I'm unsure about a standard or something that's going on or an expectation,
10 seconds.
First place I go is portrait of a graduate. Please consider focusing, dialing back the partisan politics and focusing on what matters most, our students. Thank you.
Hey, folks, we'll regulate the end here, so please no clapping over the top. We're getting used to our new mic system. Thank you, Brianna. We will ask everybody to cut right as we hit time so that we can move on to the next person, give time for everybody. Thank you, Brianna. Next up is Monica Wilbur, and then followed by Representative Philip K. Lyman. Monica.
Thank you, Chair Moss. 2 years ago, I stood here in front of the board and read a reprimand of the board's unlawful and unconstitutional attempt to silence member Natalie Klein. And here we go again. You are doing it all over again. You are not learning from the mistakes of the past. And maybe it's because it was Natalie who had to pay for your mistakes and not you. But that needs to change. If what the media says is true, at least 6, if not more, board members approached Chair Moss and demanded that some type of punishment for Natalie Klein be had for exercising her free speech. The news report said one member in particular requested that Natalie Klein be punished by losing her committee assignment. You all took an oath to support, obey, and defend the Constitution. Anyone on this board who is in on that complaint in any form or fashion is acting unconstitutionally. It is unconstitutional for you to seek to silence Natalie's voice to represent her district and freely speak the truth. The Constitution doesn't say that the right to free speech belongs to everyone but Natalie Klein. The Constitution doesn't say that the only speech that gets protected is the speech that you agree with. The Constitution doesn't say punish Natalie's speech but protect other members' speech, and you know whose speech you are protecting. The Constitution does say you cannot abridge Natalie's speech, and you cannot compel it either. You are not the speech police. It doesn't take a lawyer to tell you that your bylaws do not trump the Constitution. If you have acted in any way to support silencing Natalie, you have both an ethical and constitutional obligation to recuse yourselves from any vote on allegations against Natalie. You don't get to be her accusers and her jury and her judge. That is a gross abuse of power and of due process. Under no circumstances should any complaining member be allowed to participate in any vote concerning Natalie Klein. May God bless our constitutional republic, and may God bless Natalie Klein.
Thank you, Monica. Representative Wyman.
Do I just take off and go? Thank you. Thank you for the chance to address the board. Thank you for what you're doing here. I'm Phil Wyman in the Utah legislature, and I just wanted to come today, first of all, say I admire disruptive comments, especially when they challenge the status quo. And a lot of the times that status quo needs to be challenged from one side or the other. I was listening to the comments of board member Lear about, not a big fan of the constitutional republic. And I thought, and I had a smile on my face. I thought I'd like to know what form of government she is a fan of. And to make the legislature happy, that's a real challenge. I don't think anybody wants to make the legislature happy. I said when I ran for office, I didn't do this to make friends, and so far it's working. But I do want to talk about the double standard that I observe when we talk about investigating people for comments that they make. I would prefer to see this board stand up and defend people for making comments, whether you agree with them or don't agree with them. I don't want to see these things squashed. When we get into this scene of the Utah State School Board or the state legislature, hopefully we have some skin in the game in this discussion. But I'll tell you one group that definitely has skin in the game, and it's the parents. And the parents have been silenced. And when I see comments like the ones that were made here recently in this room, it sends a message to school boards that they can target parents. We've got a narrative in the United States that parents are domestic terrorists. If anyone should fight that narrative, it should be this school board. It should be this group of people that stands up and says, our parents are not domestic terrorists. They have a right to come and talk to this board about any complaints that they might have. As a legislator, I just want to express my commitment to this board to support them as they support parents in their right to speak and support board members in their right to make their comments, whether they agree with them or not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we've got Dave Mortensen, Stephanie Grant. And again, I'll remind you, we ask you not to single out individuals. And if there are questions about what any board members said in our board meetings, I encourage you to review the whole meeting, see comments in context. Mr. Mortensen.
Thank you, Chair Moss, members of the board. My name's David Mortensen.
One quick thing. Mr. Mortensen is here to speak on something that's on our agenda later, and so we've allotted 5 minutes to address that because that's the only opportunity to weigh in on that subject. We will get to everybody who signed up, though.
Thank you, and I will endeavor to be brief. I'm today representing American Preparatory Academy. I'm an attorney and outside counsel for American Preparatory Academy. I understand that later today, this board will be discussing in an executive session pending litigation with American Preparatory Academy, and I'm here today to speak in favor of the resolution that I believe was delivered to all of you yesterday. Over 3.5 years ago, there was a corrective action plan that resulted from a monitoring visit and an evaluation of American Preparatory Academy's special education program. The CAP raised 4 concerns and encouraged or required American Preparatory Academy to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars obtaining 1,872 hours of mentorship and complete other training. American Preparatory Academy believed the CAP was based on outdated data that had been updated and a misunderstanding of the program, and therefore we filed an appeal. Since then, AAG Quisenberry and I have worked diligently to try to resolve that dispute. We've considered numerous options, worked through various different possibilities, and earlier this year, as we were talking, I was mentioning how the program at APA had changed materially from what it was over 3 years ago. We decided at that point to invite American Preparatory Academy Special Ed Group to come and meet with members of the SES staff here with the Utah State Board of Education, and to describe their program and what had changed since in the prior 3 years. That meeting occurred on February 17th, 2023 in this room, and Chair Moss was invited and kindly gave of his time to come and listen. During that meeting, we described profound changes to the monitoring, the way APA documents and monitors its special education program. In the 3 years that have occurred since the CAP was issued, APA has met with countless experts across the United States and in Utah to develop the very best practices of providing special education at its school. Based on recommendations it's received, it's hired 20 new full-time staff members who oversee and provide special education. It's worked with software providers and spent nearly $1 million on new software to create new forms to allow for daily tracking of special education services. And it spent nearly $500,000 on a financial consultant to ensure that it meets all of its financial reporting and tracking requirements. As a result, thereafter in April, the USBE SES staff met again and came and did another monitoring visit at APA. The results of that were an unbelievable result. During interviews, APA staff answered 1,086 of the 1,115 questions correctly, a result of 97.4% correct on questions in the interview process. The observation items, 105 of 120 observation items were done correctly, and 87.5% correct. And while there were 907 of the 1,118 items in 24 student files were also deemed to be correct. Now, while not perfect, these numbers do not justify a CAP of the kind that has been issued 3.5 years ago. Accordingly, I come today and we proposed in the materials delivered to you yesterday, a resolution of this dispute. This CAP has been a millstone around APA's neck, preventing it from growing, discouraging individuals from attending APA, and it's become a real problem. Accordingly, in place of the CAP, we propose this, that the CAP be withdrawn, the litigation be dismissed, and APA will contract with a special education consultant that will during this next school year, will conduct a complete evaluation of APA's special education program, review the recent recommendations from SEA staff, develop and implement a training plan for AP administration and staff on topics indicated in the evaluation program, and report that all to SEA staff by the end of June 2024. This will allow APA to shed the millstone of this CAP and ensure future and ongoing compliance and a successful program that APA has been operating for many years. Lastly, let me just say, I understand that today is AAG Quisenberry's last day. Well, he'll be leaving here soon. And on a personal note, let me just say that he and I have butted heads for 4 years. He is an outstanding lawyer, a consummate professional, and I will miss working with him. I have really enjoyed him. He's an unbelievable person. And I just want to say thank you to him for all of his work. I look forward to working with whoever you guys hire next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mortensen. And we'll come back to Mr. Quisenberry. I promise to embarrass him further later, but appreciate that you're good friends on the opposite sides. Always good to see. We've got Stephanie Grant, followed by Neil Ricard.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Stephanie Grant. So Natalie Klein is a hero. She's brave. Natalie takes so much abuse from so many people, and she has absolutely nothing to gain from exposing the garbage that's coming for our kids. The fact that she's being investigated instead of the agenda being investigated is very concerning to me. What side of history do you guys want to be on? If you can't see our children are under attack, you really aren't fit to sit on the board. It's time to stand up for our children. And why are you investigating Natalie Klein instead of investigating the claims? Why are you going after the messenger? If someone told you your child was in danger, would you attack that person or would you make sure the child is safe? I personally attended an event held for teachers put on by the Pride organization, and I heard with my own ears the presenters brag about how she knew that her own kindergartner boy was going to be a trans because he'd wear a hood, and she said that that boy wanted that hood to be hair in her opinion. And so she bought him a book without the parents knowing about a little boy who wants to be a girl, and she read it to him, and she said she was so proud of him because after that he went to the library and checked it out himself. This is without the parents even being involved in any of this. I heard another teacher bragging about how she was so happy that another teacher, she didn't know that her whole life she was a lesbian. Another teacher told her that she was lesbian, and then as a grown adult she learned that she was. I sat through a course where they were teaching about art, and they showed a picture of two men having sex and said, this is how you can educate the kids through art. This is how you can throw in the LGBTQ onto the children. When you take a big entity and you go after a single person, you are abusing your power, just like ASD did to a mom in the district. Prior to the last election, this mother exposed ASD's own plan to close schools. They did everything they could to discredit her and destroy her. And less than 4 months later, announced this closure of those exact same schools. I also was at another event where I watched Carol Lear lead a rally of a big group of people and encourage them to stop Natalie Klein. I sat in the room as a group screamed at Natalie, fascists go home for 7 straight minutes.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Is that behavior acceptable?
Sorry. We're up.
Alrighty.
We appreciate you joining us. Next up, Neil Ricard, and followed by Tiffany Barker. And we missed Nicholas Willis. If you're online somewhere, we'll get back to you. Neil, thank you.
Thanks for having me. Hope you're all having a nice morning. I'm here to talk about Healthy Meals for All programming and a request that was put forward by the board for more information. In the interest of keeping things short, I think I'll stick to 2 points. I represent Utahns Against Hunger. And the first point would be emphasizing the inadequacy of means testing with respect to free meals currently. One of the things we know working with pantries across the state is that increasingly people who are nominally middle-income families, higher-income families are participating in emergency food services. And it's not something restricted to the Salt Lake Valley either. It's something you see in Box Elder. There's actually a national news story about pantries in Utah County serving people who are, again, nominally middle-income. In fact, one of the strongest pieces of evidence that this is happening is lunch debt itself. By definition, meal debt among students at schools comes from students who are participating in paid meals, not in free meals. Free meals don't accumulate school meal debt. So we know there are students who are not caught by the existing supports of the free meal programming, which is a tragedy because we know that there are positive impacts to be had in terms of mental health for students, in terms of academic performance, in terms of absenteeism rates. These are things we know can be improved by better meal service. And the reason we look at Healthy Meals for All programming is because that eliminates the administrative burdens that keep schools and students from participating in these programs, because it eliminates stigma, because it keeps staff who are participating in the actual administration of school meals from becoming debt collectors instead of meal providers and members of these students' communities. These are obviously things at Utahns Against Hunger we feel strongly about just in terms of access to food, but honestly, we feel very strongly about this as an academic intervention. It's one of those few things that has a subtle effect that actually not only scales effectively, but gets more effective as it does scale. And that's one of the reasons we strongly support this programming.
Thank you, Neil. Next up, Tiffany Barker. And then we have Willie Juan Johnson. Then maybe back to Nicholas Willis.
2 years ago, Natalie Klein was smeared with lies about her character and her words. I was here 2 years ago to watch how the board and others treated her First Amendment rights as if she didn't have any at all, as if we didn't live in America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. I'm watching history repeat itself now, 2 years later. I know why Natalie is being attacked. It's not just because people disagree with her, it's because people know that what she is saying is true. There is power in truth. Nobody gets in trouble for lying, they only get in trouble for telling the truth. Think about that. Representative Klein attended an ASD board meeting at the request of her constituents. I was there because in an effort to intimidate me, an ASD administrator identified on a public page of more than 26,000 people where my children attend school and where we live. This type of bully behavior is a pattern seen across the state, and I really appreciate Natalie attending the meeting in defense of her constituents. The truth shines light in the dark corners where people would rather hide. People can't handle the truth, so instead they seek to destroy the truth teller. This is a pattern across our entire country. What is happening to Natalie Klein right now is the politics of personal destruction because she is speaking truth. Whatever miserable small political victory Natalie's enemies might think to get from this ridiculous and reckless investigation, it will be short-lived. And this thing I know, if the price Natalie has to pay for defending our children continues to increase, you need to know that those who have helped this injustice happen will be no braver and no freer than the rest of us, and the people will not forget. You owe Natalie an apology. I will end with this, Luke 8:17. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. Willie Barker.
Check. We're good to go.
You're good to go.
My
Floor is
name is
yours.
Willie, but I also answer to Gandalf. I coincidentally got my 23andMe family DNA history results back last week, and I got some really bad news. I'm white. I had the opportunity last night to look through Title 53E of the Utah Code. I was shocked at how little power this body actually has to control and protect children. However, you do have the power to enact rules. I'm asking you to enact a rule that says no erect penis pictures anywhere in any public schools in Utah. And
Just remind
And
you
to
to try to
those
keep the graphic displays down.
well,
Thank
if you don't like graphic, then get it out of the schools. there,
We
buddy.
understand.
And I want extra time for your interference and trying to steal my time.
Floor is yours.
For all of you people on this board who have persecuted Mrs. Klein for trying to protect the children of this state, I have one thing to say to you. Lucifer, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to come out of them, especially her right there. Do your job. Protect the students.
Mr. Johnson, that's inappropriate. Thank you.
No,
for
it's
joining
not
us.
inappropriate. Inappropriate is filthy, vile pornography in the schools, in elementary schools. Stop it now. We know what you're doing.
We appreciate your argument. Please avoid personal attacks. We welcome strong argument, folks. Please avoid personal attacks. All right, we do have Nicholas. Okay, that's who I was looking for. Nicholas Willis, are you with us? Maybe.
Tell him if he's on. His mic is muted.
Nicholas, if you're on, we can't hear you. You're our last public commenter, I believe, right? Is that the end of our? Okay, so it's now or never. If you're with us, Ms. Member Bogus. to Kristen Richie. Is she already? I don't think she's spoken, right? Okay, Ms. Richie, you are our final commenter. Thank you for joining us.
We moved to Utah 2 years ago, and just days later, I became actively involved, like so many parents and grandparents across the country, in finding out what is being taught in our schools. I became alarmed at the attempts to remove parents from decisions about their child. I saw the introduction of social justice and correct attitudes to be fostered in our education system under the banner of CRT or SEL. I was concerned at the embracing of a blueprint for students in order to standardize their education. I felt troubled at the assessments and subjective metrics that have nothing to do with academic skills. And then there's the sensitive material. Pornography being placed in our school libraries in the name of tolerance and diversity. This is the packet I have. The collection of pornographic books found on the shelves of the libraries of Alpine School District this past year. It is sexually graphic, offensive, and damaging to our children. Parents nationwide are speaking out. I'll leave this for your review. Natalie Klein is a champion, standing up for children and parents in all of these areas. I support her 100%. Being an elected school board member does not take away her right to warn parents about problems in our educational system. No one should lose that right to free speech, and any state board policy that censures the right to speak the truth must be challenged. I attended the legislative session many days this year. I witnessed Utah legislators exercising freedom of speech on many controversial issues. We'd be in a terrible state without that freedom to speak out. I've read Natalie's statements and concerns, and I appreciate her courage and honesty in speaking out. Being an elected member of the state school board does not take away her right to warn parents of damaging ideas and practices infiltrating our education system. She's a champion of concerned parents throughout our state and deserves our full support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all for joining us. And that will conclude our public comment period.